This is not really gonna take long, but I just wanted to give you advice, especially people who share the same faith as me, who are Christian. But even if you may not consider yourself Christian, but you are willing to, I stepped on a thorn. Ow. Even if you are, ooh, that's yeah. I don't know if you can see that. Can you see that? Yeah, it's a thorn. Even if you may not consider yourself Christian, I just wanted to give this advice. But of course, it's mainly for Christians because those are the ones who are more likely to be receptive of this. As the title suggests, don't celebrate Halloween. Now, Halloween for many people might just be about people dressing up, having fun, trick or treat, candies, scary, spooky. But Halloween has an origin, of course. And I think the full name of Halloween is All Halloweens. I can't remember what it is. It's also called All Saints Day. But more or less, the premise of Halloween, the thing about it is it's a day in which witches and Satanists celebrate the dead. It's a holiday or day that has been set forth to celebrate the dead. Now, I know if you're not a Christian, you might be like, oh, here we go again. But for those who are willing to listen, this is a day that celebrates death and not life. Spiritually, it is believed that Halloween, for those who practice it, or its origin, those Celtic religions that gave birth to the occult or occultic practices. It is believed, now I don't know how to, because I'm holding the camera with one hand. So let me just try and do this. I hope you can hear me properly. So this is how it is, right? It is believed that on Halloween, spiritually, the border or boundary between the physical world and the spiritual world becomes thin. I'll give you an example. Some of you may have noticed that for whatever reason, if there is a lot of spiritual activity, maybe you have what they call sleep paralysis, though we know that that is a spiritual attack, it's a demonic attack. All these weird things that happen spiritually, they happen usually between 12 and especially at 3 a.m. Now, I do not understand many spiritual things, but for whatever reason, it would seem as though at 3 a.m., usually that border between the spiritual and the physical becomes thin, which is why there's a lot of spiritual activity, which is why many people get attacked, many people have nightmares, many people will wake up from a nightmare or from whatever physical, spiritual experience, and when they look at the time, it's usually at or around 3 a.m. Likewise, when it comes to Halloween, for whatever reason, this is a day in which, again, that boundary between spiritual and physical is thin. It was believed that when people died and haven't entered the spiritual world, the best time to contact them or whatever fancy term you want to use, was on Halloween's day. The reason the practitioners of Halloween wear masks is because they believed that, again, the boundary between and physical was thin on that day, and therefore they believed that the saints or the dead were able to cross from the spiritual world into the physical world on that day. And maybe because there's a vengeance or they're angry, they would seek to attack human beings or cause harm to them. Those spirits who are the deceased, former people who are now deceased, when they come back to the physical world, as spirits, of course, they would attack people. That's the reason why on Halloween Day or Halloween's Day, they put on masks. The belief was that when the spirits came, when they saw people with masks, that's why the masks mimic animals. They would look at those people, and because those people are wearing masks, they would assume that those people are not people, but they are animals. And therefore, um, they would not attack or afflict those people in any way. Those people were protected because of those masks hiding their identity. That's why on Halloween they put on costumes. Now, of course, as years went by and people made it a fun holiday or whatever, they put on costumes on holidays because it's fun. However, Halloween is a day in which there is a lot of spiritual activity. I'm not American, but one of the things I know is that law enforcement, police, and whatever law enforcement agency or whatever, Halloween is one of the days they do not like because on that day there is a lot of murder, there's a lot of kidnapping. Anything you can name happens a lot on Halloween. Many people go missing because, crazy as it may seem, some are abducted because that's a day in which practitioners of the dark arts kidnap people and use them as for ritual sacrifices. It's a day in which babies are, what's the right word? Babies are dedicated and sacrificed, you know? So even though you might say, I'm a Christian, I'm just having fun with it, you cannot separate the essence of the day and its meaning and who it is dedicated to and say, I'm celebrating this day. It doesn't stand. The same way as a Christian, when, for example, it's just an example, it's not a hate speech or anything, it's just an example. As a Christian, you don't celebrate Ramadan, which is a Muslim holiday. You don't celebrate Diwali, which is a Hindu um, celebration. And the reason you don't practice these is because you acknowledge that these days are dedicated to a foreign god, a different god, right? And therefore, you cannot say, well, I am just going to celebrate these days as a Christian, but I'm not going to celebrate the God that they belong to, therefore it's okay. You divorce yourself from celebrating those days because you acknowledge that they are dedicated to foreign gods. Likewise, what more a day that is dedicated strictly to Satan? Does that make sense? So Christians do not celebrate this day, do not entertain it. That's why there are many horror movies. If you take notice, now I know in America, of course, not only Americans are going to watch this, but I know that in America, for example, you guys have cable. Whatever cable or television station you have, you will note that many of the movies that are playing now are horror movies that have to do with horror and fright and scariness and evil and you know everything that has to do with that genre or type of movies. There's a reason for that, right? So don't celebrate the day. The founder of the Church of Satan, he's deceased now, but one of the iconic things he said was that I am glad that there is a day in which Christian children, something I'm paraphrasing, he said something along the lines of he is glad that there is a day in which Christians celebrate the enemy, who is Satan. He was happy because there is a day in which Christian parents allow their children to celebrate a day dedicated to Satan. And he was talking about Halloween. So for you, it just might be about, oh, pumpkins and trick or treat or whatever, but there is something to this day. So, in a nutshell, um, I'm just going to advise you, do not celebrate Halloween. It is not a godly holiday. Christians, it is not a day for you to celebrate. Have nothing to do with the darkness. It is not for us. It is not for us. Likewise, a Satanist is not going to celebrate Christmas Day because that is a day in which we celebrate the birth of Christ the Messiah. And naturally, that is not a day in which a Satanist will celebrate because it goes against his or her beliefs. Likewise, you cannot celebrate a day that is dedicated to Satan and say it's just a day. Have nothing to do with it. It is not your day to celebrate. So I hope this message was loud and clear. Other than that, God bless you and much love. Bye. It's the first time I go live on YouTube, so if it takes a while for me to stop the video, then bear with me. Thanks, guys. How'd you do this? I really have no idea. Do you press X? Okay.